Senbazuru is the best book I've ever read. I'm not making any grand gestures here. I'm not saying it's the best written or the best laid out in terms of a narrative. I'm just saying, purely subjectively, that it single-handedly has changed the way I live my life more than any other piece of literature I've ever had the pleasure of reading. And for that, I have to thank Michael James Wong, the author, for writing it in such a delicate and nurturing way. 1,000 paper cranes in 1 year. That's a monumental task, one I have yet to complete. But there are ways this book has affected me far beyond its overall practical goal of reaching Senbazuru. Hope. We can start with the turtle. Often when we speak of courage, we can be fooled into believing that courage and might are the same, but they are not. It is easy for a gorilla to pound its chest in a jungle full of animals that already bow to him, or an eagle to soar in revelry above his prey, which already fears him. But this is not courage. It is simply the actions of their given nature and their place within the kingdom. But the turtle is not known for its bravery. It is quiet and timid, and at the first sign of danger, hides away in its shell, protected so the world cannot hurt it when it's safe inside. But the turtle knows that there is no progress when it is hidden away. It cannot move forward. So in time, it must re-emerge, in the face of danger or whatever lies waiting outside. The courage of the turtle is not in its retreat, but in the decision it takes to step back into the light. Courage and might are not the same. But here I am, still gobsmacked after reading it for the 50th time. It's not the absence of fear, but the confronting of it that is virtuous. Happiness. This one still has me mixed up. I understand it, but do I agree with it? When I was in my late 20s, I attended sessions with a meditation teacher whose name I've since sadly forgotten. In these sessions, we would sit for hours, both in silence and in quiet conversation. One time, I remember a woman attended who was distraught with emotions from a recent breakup with her long-term partner. Throughout the session, she just sat against the wall at the back of the hall, disengaged with the conversation, weeping loudly for all the room to hear. For the next 20 minutes, her weeping could be heard throughout the hall, and you could see that the other students were beginning to become restless and disturbed. Finally, the teacher stopped and turned his attention towards her and said, "My dear, I must tell you, you are stealing everyone's experience, and your decision to do so, it's selfish. Why do you choose this path and disrupt the moment?" Many years later, I still return to this moment, wondering if it could have been handled differently. To me, her misery was a cry for help and a yearning for compassion. But looking at the lesson within this experience, was the woman really in pain? Or was she, as the teacher said, in a suffering state? Could this woman suffer, but be without pain? But then what is suffering, if it is not pain? And is it an inevitability, or a choice? Well, I have come to believe it is the latter. Suffering is the story we attach to our traumatic experiences. It is the legacy of emotions we burden ourselves with, dwelling in the misery of our past misfortunes, painful or otherwise. And as unpleasant and uncomfortable as it is to suffer, it is still a conscious choice we make. We choose to be a victim, and we choose to prolong the story. In all cases of suffering, we give it permission to exist. Well, I'm not sure if it matters if I agree. It's the sharing of the wisdom and components of our learning that matters, far more than the overall conclusion we reach, I believe. Whether or not I believe his teacher was a huge bastard for what he did, or if it happened at all, is all nebulous. Whatever I learn from simply hearing it as I read it, well, that's enough, in my opinion. But it's bloody interesting, isn't it? Healing. And finally, Sometimes it's the smallest of philosophical concepts that can shift the greatest of psychological obstacles. When we lean away from our familiarities and dedicate our attention and consideration towards that which is new or different, we cultivate a true evolution in balance and self-awareness of our perceived weaknesses. If, at a younger age, you realized you were great at maths, your life may have been guided along a logical and analytical path. If you excelled at art and the creative endeavors, then perhaps you were guided along this colorful path. Inevitably, your skills became your identity. So if you are analytical, you may not think of yourself as a creative. If you are artistic, you may not consider yourself as logical. But what if we are, and simply haven't nurtured these qualities within us? When we choose to cultivate the opposite and move away from familiarity, we are choosing a path to regain the balance of a well-rounded and fully experienced life. For us to grow, we must lean towards our discomforts. The more we do this, even in smaller amounts, the more we find that challenges in our lives become less challenging. In time, our capabilities and capacity increase. We must always make way for our weaknesses, for they teach us how to find our way back to a balanced way of being. Vulnerability, despite having shunned it for such a long time, has opened me up to new experiences that I could have never imagined. My weaknesses, as they were once perceived, have become my strengths, as I have become empowered by my real, honest perspectives. The rest of this book, it's filled with even more of this gorgeous philosophical and ideological discussion. But if you're still not convinced to give it a read, I'll leave you with this. Each day I remember that I have come this far, not to arrive, but to discover what unfolds along the way. But I am in no rush, for I have nowhere I need to be. Do not be tempted by the rising tide. Go forth with gentleness, unconditionally, completely. Be patient and slow your wandering step. This life is a gift. We must walk graciously. Give yourself permission to feel the breeze. Freedom is on the horizon. Walk the mountains and take the path out to sea. Be curious about what lies beyond the sunset. The quiet waves are not our only serenity. Rise each day so we may remember. Love relentlessly. Offer forgiveness. This path must be walked tenderly. Time is a gift. Let it wash away the past. Let all that remains be our joy. But still, I am in no